Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to my channel, Do Ministry Gaming, and in this video we are going to do an Atlas Ascendancy review for Glennach Cairns. Now this video is part of a playlist where I do every map region in the Atlas one at a time, and I discuss what each of the Ascendancy passives do within each map region, as well as some common strategies that people use, myself included, to farm these regions. And you can find that playlist, of course, in the description below. Now, the explanation of these strategies will include watchstone modifiers, sextants if they're applicable, map device mods, scarabs, or anything else that you're going to run in order to deliver these strategies. And of course, as always, I can't cover every strategy that's out there. I'm only going to cover the ones that I use regularly and have found effective, or the ones that I've seen from other players within the community who I think are also effective strategies but haven't tried myself. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm actually going to start with these 4 nodes in the middle right here because they are my favorite within the Glennach Cairns zone, and these 4 nodes are related to the temple mechanic, which is Incursion or Alva. So these temple nodes, when you just read the wording, it is kind of confusing. So hopefully I can clarify it for you in this video, but I'm going to start with resource reallocation. Killing non-resident architects in areas have 50% chance to add an additional upgrade tier to the surviving architect's room. Now that can be quite confusing, but let me simplify for you. Basically, if you enter an incursion, and it's an incursion where you have the upgrade option and the switch room option, and you go to upgrade the room, you actually have a 50% chance with this node allocated to upgrade the room a second time, which means you can actually get a room straight from level 1 to level 3. You have a 50% chance to do that. And now the other node is contested development. Killing resident architects in areas add their value tier, or sorry, their upgrade tier to the surviving architect's room. Basically what that means is when you go into an incursion, let's use the same example, you have the upgrade room and the switch room. If you go to switch the room, you actually retain the tier of the room that it originally was when you entered the incursion. Or in other words, let's say you entered a tier 2 room of a room you don't want and you wanted to switch it. Then when you go to switch, you actually retain the level 2 of that room even after the switch instead of dropping back down to level 1. And so between these 2 nodes, as you can imagine, you're going to end up with a lot of temples now that have a lot more level 3 rooms and a lot more rooms that you like compared to if you didn't have these nodes, because you every time you go to upgrade, you have a 50% chance to upgrade twice to the level 3, and every time you switch rooms, you're not penalized and you don't have to reset your levels. You can take a level 2 room that you didn't like and you can just straight switch across to a level 2 room that you do like. And as you can imagine, one of the strategies here is, of course, to run all of your Alva missions in Glennach Cairns, which is what I do, in order to juice up my temples as much as I can. And so that is a good segue into the watchstone modifier. So the first is, if you were farming straight temple in Glennach Cairns as your #1 priority when you're running this zone, always, of course, run the Alva Master mission, but then that lends itself to, the importance of sustaining Alva missions. And so one thing you can run for your watchstones is the Titanium Watchstone modifier Seeker, which allows master missions from completing maps to have an increased chance to be Alva, right? And so every time you complete a map, you might regain an Alva mission. And so trying to get that sustained as much as possible to run as many temples as possible as you can here. Now, if you were running the temple nodes as sort of a secondary strategy here in Glennach Cairns, then there are some other watchstone modifiers you can pair with as well. And so one strategy that you can't run here is to run tower maps. Tower maps because they drop the nurse card, which especially in 3.14 has been even more valuable than it has been in previous leagues because of the nerf to the drop rates to the headhunter with all the changes and what have you. And so one very common strategy is to try to run towers with as many drops as you can get in Glennach Cairns. And so let me explain the strategy to you. basically you're running, let's say, a tower map because it's got a very nice div card drop, and you're just looking to drop as many items as you can and run the Alvas because the Incursions actually have a pretty big loot explosion right at the end of them. And then if you have these nodes, you're also progressing your temple at the same time as running Alva, so you're not really wasting your master missions. And so to pair with that, then you really want the mods that really juice your incursion drops. And so there is a titanium watchstone modifier called Treasure Hunter, which gives you a % increase quantity of items dropped in incursions in the area. So like I say, you're trying to farm as many drops as you can in the tower maps. You're running Alva missions because you want those incursion drops, and you stack this watchstone to get the more quantity out of those loot explosions at the end of the incursions. And then you're also passively leveling up a very sweet temple at the same time. And so that's a very good strategy. And that strategy would combo usually with something like a Beyond strategy as well, which I'll talk about later in this video here. But if you were not to run the Treasure Hunter mod or the Quantity mod, there is another mod that you can run that is quite similar to this strategy. And that is on a chromium watchstone, and that mod is called Geomancy, which items and areas have a % chance to have maximum number of sockets. Okay, and so if you're farming a ton of item drops, let's say you're an item quantity or MF character as they call it, and you're farming these towers, you're trying to get card drops, but you're also trying to get currency as well. One strategy is to stack these Geomancy watchstones and drop a lot of 6-socket items basically. And as you know, 6-socket items sell at the vendor for 6 or 7 jeweler orbs, 7 jeweler orbs, I think, something like that, which is like 1.5 fusing orbs. And so when you run those Geomancy watchstones, a lot of 6 sockets actually do drop along with these incursions. One incursion explosion can you can oftentimes see 5 or 6 socket drops. And so it is actually quite a powerful strategy, especially early on in the league when fusings are still worth quite a bit. Or if you're just farming fusings to link stuff. And so that is one other watchstone strategy that you can run on top of a sort of item quantity type strategy in a map like Tower. And that's actually a really nice segue into the next set of nodes, I guess, which I'll go over here and talk about the Beyond nodes. But very quickly before I move on here is just to mention that there's no other real synergies when it comes to the map device or scarabs that you can run specifically for Temple itself. Really, all you're doing is popping in the Master Mission and running the Watchstones. Now, of course, if you were running an item quantity strategy with Tower, you would also run, of course, like, other scarabs that give you other mechanics that drop a lot of items. For example, like Breach or Strongboxes when we get to these Strongbox nodes, or, Harbingers and what have you. Just sort of more things that have more monsters that give you more drops. But specific to the temple itself, there's nothing along those lines that you would run when it comes to scarabs. All right, then. So on to the next set of nodes. Like I say, I'll run these 6 over here on the left. These are the Beyond nodes, okay? So the first one here is the Scent of Blood, slaying enemies close together in areas have a 3% chance to attract monsters from the Beyond. This is basically a % chance to get you Beyond monsters. This is the same mod as the one that can roll on the maps. And so they do stack, and so this just gives you a bit of an increased chance to get Beyond monsters. Now, the next one here is Per Demon. I can't really pronounce that. Anyway, rare Beyond demons in areas have 25% chance to drop an additional basic currency item. Okay, so that is pretty good because Beyond typically comes with a lot of rare monsters. And so the strategy here really works out along with that MF strategy that I talked about, with something like Tower, because now you're spawning Beyond monsters, which is more monsters, which is rare monsters as well, which drop additional basic currency, and you can roll sextant modifier like Nemesis monsters drop rare currency, and then map modifiers like rare monsters are Nemesis, and so all the rare monsters, including the ones from Beyond, are Nemesis, and they drop currency from the Sextant mod. They drop currency from per demon, diamond, and with item quantity, getting those nurse cards, divination scarabs going, Alva, Incursion, loot explosions at the end. All that kind of stacks together into one nice little strategy. And so having rare monsters from Beyond is very good, especially when they have a chance to drop basic currency. And then the last one here is Torn Veil. Powerful Beyond monsters require one fewer portal to summon in areas. Beyond portals and areas have 50% increased merging radius. This node is basically just more monsters coming out of your Beyond and more Beyond stacking. Okay, so this is just these two nodes are just getting you more and more monsters, and then per demon diamond is the one that kind of gets you the currency. And like I say, comboed with the MF strategy, along with, especially if you can roll Nemesis monsters, drop rare currencies, and rare monsters are Nemesis, then this becomes a very, very strong strategy. So on to the Watchstone modifiers. When you run these Beyond nodes, you really typically, very typically, are running an MF or item quantity strategy, like I've kind of explained ad nauseum already up to this point, but dropping as many items as you can, spawning as many monsters as you can, and in the sort of really juiced up cases, you've got the Nemesis drops rare currency mod, Sextant mod. But so, to layer on top of that, then the strategy for the Watchstones, there are a couple Beyond specific Watchstones that you can layer onto. The first, these are both Platinum Watchstones. The first is a Fraught, which is a pretty rare roll, but slaying monsters close together in areas has a 1% chance to attract monsters from the Beyond. So if you have 4, that's 4%, plus Seekers of Stones is 5%, plus Scent of the Blood is 3%, plus the one that you can roll on the map itself, which I think is 6% maybe. I don't have it on hand. You can see that stacking that percentage up pretty high is going to just get you a whole bunch more Beyond monsters. And of course, that is all multiplicative along with Torn Veil, right? The more percent you have to just get Beyond monsters, the more you have for Torn Veil to amplify that effect. The other would be the Demonic mod, which is Beyond portals and areas have percent chance to spawn an additional Beyond demon. So that should be pretty self-explanatory when comboed with this, just more monsters coming out of your Beyond. And so those are the Watchstones, very specific to the Beyond. However, you're usually running with Beyond a MF strategy, an item quantity strategy, and you're farming currencies and drops and div cards. And so very typically, outside of running just the Beyond Watchstones, you can also pair this strategy up with a lot of Chromium Watchstones, which give you sort of the currency related type drops. Okay, so some typical ones are the ones that give you percent chance to drop as a full stack. For example, alteration orbs have a percent chance to drop as a full stack, and alteration orbs are worth a decent amount. They drop a lot, and so you can stack those up, especially when you're running a strategy that involves per diamond, which gives you 25% chance to drop an additional basic currency item. And then on top of that, like I've been harping, is you can run the map mod. Rare monsters are Nemesis, and then the Sextant Nemesis monsters drop currency, and so all that currency has a chance to drop as full stacks. On top of that, all these rare monsters that are spawning out of Beyond are now Nemesis that are dropping the currency, plus the 25% chance here to drop the basic currency. All that currency drop means lots of alterations, for example, that has a chance to drop as full stacks. And so when you run a straight up strategy for that, that can be pretty rewarding as well. All right, so on to the next set of 6 nodes here. These are specific to Legion. And so the first one here is Monumental. Areas have 10% chance to contain a Legion encounter, so that just increases your probability to see one. Then next is Face-to-Face. Legion encounters in areas are 100% more likely to include a general. Legion encounters with a general in areas have both generals. What that means is every time you see a general, you're going to see 2 of them. and you are more likely to see them when you run the Legion encounters. And these generals are they're listed at the bottom in the footnote there, but they are of course those sort of mini boss people in the Legion encounters who drop more splinters and some more items as well. And then the final one here, which is really the good one, really, is high value targets. Legions and areas contain 3 additional sergeants. Legions, sergeants, and areas have 25% chance to have rewards. And so the sergeants drop a lot of stuff as well. And so they're very good to farm, usually. High value targets used to be in New Vastier, along with these ones here, which I haven't talked about yet. But when in conjunction with these nodes here, was incredibly strong. So they moved it away from that zone into Glennach Cairns. It's still quite strong, but not the craziness that it was when it was combined with those other nodes in New Vastier there. And so if you were to run a Legion strategy, this is still a decent node. But usually when people run Legion, at least still in 3.14, they're typically running in New Vastier, which you can of course check out the New Vastier video to find out what that's all about. But you can certainly stack that here. I've got them allocated for now just to do some testing in terms of running the Legions here, and I too prefer running them in New Vastier, of course. But if you wanted to, you certainly can run that in Glennach Cairns. Now, if you were to run Legion, of course, you can run it with a Scarab as well, which is a Legion Scarab, which is right here. Rest Legion Scarab areas contain a Legion encounter. Otherwise, you're susceptible to not actually seeing one every map, which is also fine too if you just want to run a very low budget strategy. You know, you'd get the extra 10% from non-monumental, and I think the base percent is somewhere like 5 or 8% or something like that to see a Legion encounter. And so, you know, you're somewhere in that 15 to 20% range to see a Legion encounter without the Scarab. But if you really wanted to target farm the mechanic, of course, you will have to run a Scarab every time. And it's not in the map device in 3.14. Now, the Watchstone modifiers that you would pair with a Legion-specific strategy in Glennach Cairns would be Platinum Watchstone modifiers, and there's a few that you can run here. The first is there are different roles that allow the Legion encounters to have an increased chance to be of a specific army, okay? And so the ones that you want are Templar as well as Mariketh. Those are the two sort of more valuable armies. They are the green and the yellow ones, I believe. Their splinters and emblems drop for way or sell for way more than the other 3, which are more common. And so typically, if you were to run a Legion strategy, you would run Platinum Watchstones that force or that have increased percent chance to be one of those 2 armies. The other is you can run the emblematic modifier, which gives you Timeless Splinters drop by Legion monsters have a percent chance to drop as emblems instead. And so that could be okay if you're running, you know, these nodes in Glennach Cairns with more sergeants and more generals, because you're going to see a lot of splinters, which then could potentially drop as full emblems. Those are strategies that you can run if you to run Legion specific. However, you know, if you were just to run a item quantity strategy in Glennach Cairns, a lot of these, all of these mechanics lend itself towards that strategy, by the way. Legion is also not bad to run. Legion, of course, spawns a ton of monsters, a ton of rare monsters as well, and has also with it a lot of drops. And so that is not all that bad as well. And then finally, onto the bottom 4 nodes here. These are related to strong boxes. And so twice tempted, areas contain an additional strong box. Strong box and areas have 10% chance to be openable a second time. And then, and so that's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory there. But then this one here is the one where it juices up, right? Tamper-proof strongbox and areas are corrupted, and strongbox and areas are at least rare, okay? And so this can be quite good. Corrupted strongboxes can, of course, drop corrupted sixlings, which are a lot of divine orbs. And so there is a strategy here in Glennach Cairns. It's a very particular, it's like a subset of an MF or item quantity strategy where you're actually farming corrupted sixlings for divine orbs. And if you were to do that, you would definitely run the tamper-proof node here. You would run your ambush scarabs, which give you additional strong boxes, which is here. You know, just the polish already is 4 additional, and you would run that here with tamper-proof. All your strong boxes are corrupted, and they're at least rare, and they can drop the corrupted sixlings for the divine orbs. If you were to run that strategy, you'd also probably run a prophecy called Vol Winds, and what Vol Winds is there's a little buff with it throughout the map that you can put on yourself that lasts a few seconds, and within those few seconds, when you kill monsters, they can drop corrupted items, and so that drops a lot of corrupted sixlings as well. Again, especially if you're running an item quantity strategy, and so that, along with tamper-proof, is a very good strategy. And also, if you were straight farming tamper-proof as well, you may also want to consider another prophecy called Monstrous Treasure, which gives you the whole map is strong boxes. So you end up having like 40 or 50 strong boxes in your map. And with tamper-proof, they're all corrupted. They're all at least rare. And you can drop a lot of corrupted sixlings. On top of that, there's a sextant mod that you can roll on your sextants as well, which is strong boxes are enraged and drop 500% increased quantity. Now, for the Watchstone modifiers, if you were to run this strategy, like say it is an item quantity strategy typically, and you would run those Chromium Watchstones, which I've talked about already earlier in this video, where you have potentially, let's say, currency drops as full stacks, and what have you. The 6-socket one is very good as well. You know, there's also a couple other Chromium Watchstones, which is found items have a % chance to drop corrupted in areas. So let's say your Monstrous Treasure didn't proc and you're just killing normal enemies. You know, you can have that % chance for the items to drop corrupted to get those corrupted sixlings. And so those are the type of Watchstones that you'd be running with the Strongbox strategy. All right, so when it comes to personal preference between sort of all of these nodes in Glennach Cairns, I've mentioned before, I am a big fan of Temple, and so I really like running these 4 nodes when I stack up a bunch of Alva missions. But I am actually probably going to try in the next week or two an item quantity farm in Glennach Cairns as well. And so when I do that, I'd be leaning heavily into Beyond, and I'd actually probably even drop the 4 incursion nodes, because like I say, that doesn't drop extra items. I can still run the incursions for the loot explosions. I don't necessarily need these. I'd rather also run the Strongbox nodes down here. All right, everybody, that's it for Glennach Cairns. This zone really lends itself towards an item quantity type strategy. There is just so many mechanics that are so good for that, and so that's very common to run in Glennach Cairns, especially with such a juicy map like Tower, which gets you such juicy divination card drops. Anyway, I'll wrap this video up now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like and subscribe. I also stream on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Times are in the description below. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.